The text came at 11:47 p.m. "Can we talk? It's important." I stared at my phone, Emma's name glowing in the dark. We'd been neighbors for 2 years, friendly, helpful, but never this. Never late-night messages. Never important. I pulled on a jacket and walked to the fence line between our properties. She was already there, arms wrapped around herself despite the warm June night. "Hey," I said. "Everything okay?" She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her hands shaking slightly. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I need you to just let me say it." I nodded. She took a breath. "Love is quiet when it's real." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "And I've been loving you quietly for 2 years. I felt like someone had knocked the air out of my lungs." My mouth opened, but nothing came out. "You don't have to say anything," she continued quickly. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. "I'm sorry if this makes things weird. I just needed you to know." I stood there like an idiot, completely frozen. She gave me a small, sad smile, then turned and walked back to her house. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept replaying those words over and over. But to understand why those words hit me so hard, I need to take you back to the beginning. My name is Jake, and for the past 4 years, I've lived alone on 12 acres my grandfather left me when he passed. It's not much. A small 2-bedroom house that needs work, a barn that's seen better days, and land that's mostly overgrown except for the part I keep mowed. It's quiet out here, 20 minutes from the nearest town, and that's exactly how I'd wanted it. I work as an electrician, mostly residential but some commercial jobs when they come up. I'm self-employed, which means some weeks are packed and others are slow. I do service calls, panel upgrades, troubleshooting. It's good work. Honest, physical, the kind where you can see what you've accomplished at the end of the day. I keep my rates fair, show up on time, and do the job right. That's earned me a steady stream of clients in the county. My routine is simple. I wake up around 6, make coffee in the same pot I've had for 10 years, check my phone for any messages or job requests. Most mornings I'll eat something quick, toast, eggs if I'm feeling ambitious, and then I'm out the door by 7. I keep my tools organized in the bed of my truck, everything in its place. I learned early that wasting time looking for the right wire stripper or voltage tester just makes a job take twice as long. The work itself is solitary most of the time. People let me into their homes, show me the problem, and then leave me alone to fix it. I prefer it that way. I'm polite, professional, but I don't make small talk unless they initiate it. Some clients want to chat, tell me about their day, their kids, their plans for renovating the kitchen. I listen, nod in the right places, but I don't offer much in return. It's not that I'm unfriendly, I'm just not good at the casual connection thing anymore. I get home most days around 5 or 6, depending on the job. I'll shower off the day's dust and sweat, throw something together for dinner. I'm not much of a cook, but I can manage the basics. Grilled chicken, pasta, sandwiches. I eat at the kitchen table, usually with my phone propped up watching whatever's on YouTube. Car repair videos mostly, or something about woodworking. Stuff I might never do but like knowing how to do. After dinner, I'll spend an hour or 2 on the property if there's still light. There's always something that needs fixing or maintaining. A fence post that's loose, gutters that need cleaning, the lawnmower that's making a weird sound. I like the work. It keeps my hands busy and my mind from wandering too much. By 9 or 10, I'm usually in bed. I read for a bit. Mysteries, thrillers, nothing too heavy. And then I'm out. The next day starts the same way. Weekends aren't much different. I'll tackle bigger projects around the property, or if there's nothing urgent, I'll take on a Saturday job for the extra money. Sundays I try to keep open, but open just means working on my own stuff instead of someone else's. I don't go to church, don't have standing plans with friends. Most of the guys I knew from high school either moved away or started families and drifted into their own lives. I don't blame them. That's just how it goes. I wasn't always like this. 3 years ago, I was in a relationship. Her name was Melissa, and we dated for almost 2 years. She was nice enough, worked at the bank in town, had her life together, wanted all the normal things. Marriage, kids, a house with a real foundation instead of the pier and beam setup I had. She kept hinting that I should sell the property, move closer to town, maybe get a job with one of the bigger electrical companies instead of working for myself. It wasn't that her suggestions were wrong, exactly. They just weren't what I wanted. And I think she eventually realized I wasn't going to change my mind. We didn't have a big fight or anything dramatic. She just sat me down one night and said she didn't think we were going in the same direction. I agreed. We hugged, she left, and that was it. For a while after, I thought about trying again. Downloaded a dating app, swiped through profiles for a few weeks, went on 2 dates that went nowhere. The whole thing felt exhausting. Performing this version of myself that was interested and interesting, making conversation with strangers, pretending I had hobbies beyond work and fixing things. I deleted the app and decided I was fine on my own. And I was fine. That's the thing people don't get. Being alone isn't the same as being lonely. I had my work, my property, my routine. I wasn't unhappy. I just wasn't much of anything. The only real social interaction I had was with my neighbor, Emma. She'd moved into the property next to mine about 2 years ago. The house had been empty for a while before that, belonged to an elderly woman who'd passed away, and left it to her niece. Emma was the niece. I first met her on a Saturday morning. I was working on the fence line between our properties, replacing some rotted posts, when I heard someone call out. I looked up and saw a woman about my age walking toward me. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, jeans and a flannel shirt, work gloves on her hands. "Hey," she said, giving me a friendly wave. "I'm Emma. Just moved in next door." "Jake," I said, pulling off my glove to shake her hand. "Welcome to the neighborhood." She laughed at that. Neighborhood was a generous term for 2 houses separated by a 1/4 mile of trees and overgrown land. "If you ever need anything, just holler," I said. "Same to you," she replied, and that was it. Over the next 2 years, we developed an easy, low-maintenance friendship. She'd bring over eggs from her chickens every couple of weeks. I'd help her fix things when they broke. A leaky faucet, a breaker that kept tripping, a door that wouldn't latch properly. We'd chat for a few minutes, catch up on nothing important, and then go back to our separate lives. I liked Emma. She was easy to talk to, didn't pry, didn't expect more than I could give. I knew she'd moved out here from somewhere bigger. Seattle, I think she mentioned once. But she didn't talk about why. I didn't ask. Everyone's got their reasons for choosing this kind of life. I never thought of her as anything other than a neighbor. It wasn't that she wasn't attractive, she was. But I'd turned off that part of my brain. Romance, dating, relationships, they all felt like complications I didn't need. I was content with my simple, solitary life. Or at least, I thought I was. Until that night at the fence when she told me she'd been loving me quietly for 2 years, and everything I thought I knew about my own life suddenly felt like a lie. Before I tell you what happened next, do me a favor, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from. I love hearing from you all, and if you're finding this worthwhile, hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps me keep bringing you these stories. Now, let me tell you what changed everything. I stood at that fence line for probably 5 minutes after Emma walked away, just staring at nothing. My heart was doing this weird thing where it felt too big for my chest. I walked back to my house in a daze, went inside, and sat on the couch in the dark. Love is quiet when it's real. And I've been loving you quietly for 2 years. I kept hearing her voice, seeing the way her hands shook, the vulnerability in her eyes. Emma had always been composed, capable, the kind of person who seemed to have it together. But tonight she'd been nervous in a way I'd never seen before. I tried to rewind through the past 2 years, looking for signs I'd missed. Had she been flirting with me? I didn't think so. Our interactions had always been friendly but straightforward. She'd bring eggs, I'd say thanks. I'd fix something for her, she'd offer to pay. I'd wave her off. We'd talk about the weather, about her chickens, about whatever job I was working on that week. But now I was second-guessing everything. The way she always seemed to have extra coffee made when I'd stop by in the morning. How she'd mentioned once that she liked my truck, which seemed like a weird thing to compliment. The time she'd helped me stack firewood and insisted it was fun, even though it was 90 degrees and we were both sweating through our shirts. Were those signs? Or was I just retrofitting meaning onto normal neighbor behavior? I didn't sleep. I lay in bed watching the ceiling fan spin, my mind racing. Around 3 in the morning, I got up and made coffee even though I knew it would just make me more wired. I sat at the kitchen table and tried to figure out what I was supposed to do. The logical part of my brain said I should just tell her I didn't feel the same way. Keep things simple. Maintain the boundary. We were good neighbors. Why risk that? But there was another part. quieter, less certain, that kept pulling up specific memories. The way Emma laughed, really laughed, when I told her about a job where a client insisted their electrical problem was caused by ghosts. The time she'd shown up at my door with soup when I'd been sick with the flu, just left it on the porch, and texted me that it was there. How she'd sat with me on her porch one evening when I'd mentioned it was my grandfather's birthday, and we'd just existed in comfortable silence while the sun went down. I realized I looked forward to seeing her, not in an obvious way, not like I was counting down the hours. But when I saw her truck in her driveway, something in me relaxed. When she texted asking if I had a spare drill bit, I'd respond immediately, even though I usually let messages sit for hours. Is that love? I wondered. Or just familiarity? Habit? By the time the sun came up, I still didn't have an answer. I went to work that day, running on no sleep and too much coffee. I was installing new outlets in a kitchen renovation, and I had to double-check every connection because I kept losing focus. The homeowner, a chatty woman in her 60s, asked if I was feeling all right. Just didn't sleep well, I said. Woman trouble? She asked with a knowing smile. I almost laughed. Something like that. Well, she said, refilling my water glass without asking. My advice? Don't wait too long to figure it out. Life's short, and the good ones don't wait around forever. I nodded, not trusting myself to say anything else. I avoided Emma for 3 days. I saw her truck leave in the mornings, saw lights on in her house at night, but I didn't go over. She didn't text me either, which somehow made it worse. The silence felt heavy, like we were both waiting for the other person to make the next move. On the 4th day, I was in my barn organizing tools, mostly just keeping my hands busy, when I realized I still had her hedge trimmer. She'd lent it to me 2 weeks ago and I'd forgotten to return it. I stood there holding it, debating. I could just leave it by her door when she wasn't home, but that felt cowardly. I walked over around 6 in the evening. Her truck was there, lights on in the kitchen. I knocked, heard footsteps, and then the door opened. Emma looked tired. Not physically, but emotionally, like she hadn't been sleeping well either. Hey, she said softly. Come in. I hesitated, then nodded. She stepped aside and I walked into her kitchen. It smelled like coffee and something baking. Bread, maybe. I set the hedge trimmer on her counter. Thanks, she said. You didn't have to bring it over. I would have grabbed it eventually. I know. We stood there in awkward silence. This was the first time in 2 years that being around Emma felt uncomfortable, and I hated it. Look, I started, then stopped. I didn't know what I wanted to say. Emma saved me. I'm sorry if I made things weird, she said. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. But I don't expect anything from you, Jake. I really don't. If you want to just go back to how things were, we can do that. Can we? I asked. Because I don't know if I can just unhear what you said. She winced slightly. I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. I ran a hand through my hair, frustrated with myself for not having better words. I need to be honest with you. I don't know what I feel. Emma nodded slowly. Okay. It's not that I don't. I struggled. You're important to me. I didn't realize how much until these past few days when I've been avoiding you. I noticed, she said with a small, sad smile. I just turned off that part of myself a long time ago. I continued. Relationships, romance, all of it. It felt easier to just not try. And now you're telling me you've been feeling this way for 2 years and I didn't even notice. And I don't know if that makes me oblivious or broken or... You're not broken, Emma interrupted gently. You're just careful. There's nothing wrong with that. I met her eyes. I don't want to lose you as a neighbor, as a friend. You won't, she said. I promise. Whatever you decide or don't decide, I'm not going anywhere. This is my home, too. Something about the way she said it, calm, certain, without any pressure, made my chest ache. Can I just think about it? I asked. Not forever. I'm not going to string you along. I just need time to figure out what I actually feel. Of course, Emma said. Take all the time you need. I nodded, then turned to leave. But at the door, I stopped. For what it's worth, I said without looking back. These past few days without you, they sucked. I heard her breath catch. Yeah, she said quietly. They really did. I left before I could say anything else, walked back to my house, and for the first time in 3 years, let myself consider the possibility that maybe I wasn't as fine alone as I'd convinced myself I was. The next morning I woke up with something unfamiliar sitting in my chest. Not quite anxiety, not quite anticipation, just awareness. Emma was on the other side of those trees, probably making coffee in her kitchen like she did every morning. And for the first time in years, I was thinking about someone other than myself. I went through my morning routine, shower, coffee, check messages, but everything felt slightly different, like someone had adjusted the contrast on my life, and I was noticing details I'd been blind to before. Around 8, my phone buzzed. Emma, morning, I made too much coffee again if you want some. I stared at the message. She'd sent me variations of this probably 50 times over the past 2 years. I'd always thought it was just neighborly. But now I wondered, had she been making extra coffee on purpose, hoping I'd come over? I typed back, be there in 10. I changed into a clean shirt, which was stupid because I was just going next door, but I did it anyway. Then I walked across the property line to her house. She answered the door in jeans and a faded gray t-shirt, hair still damp from a shower. Hey, she said, and I could see relief in her eyes that I'd actually come. Hey. She poured me a cup without asking how I took it. She already knew. Black, no sugar. We stood in her kitchen, both holding our mugs, and it was awkward for about 30 seconds before Emma said, "So, how's the Henderson job going?" And just like that, we fell into familiar territory. I told her about the electrical panel I was upgrading. She told me about one of her chickens that had figured out how to escape the coop. It wasn't forced or uncomfortable. It was just us. Before I left, I paused at the door. Same time tomorrow? I asked. She smiled. I'll make extra. Week 2. Coffee became our new routine. Not every morning. I had early jobs some days. She had her own schedule. But 3 or 4 times a week, I'd walk over and we'd drink coffee in her kitchen. Sometimes we'd talk about work or the property. Other times we'd just exist in comfortable silence. I started noticing things. The way Emma wrapped both hands around her mug like she was always slightly cold, even in summer. How she'd tap her fingers against the counter when she was thinking. The small scar on her right wrist that I'd never asked about. The way her whole face changed when she smiled. Really smiled. Not the polite version she gave strangers. One morning she was quieter than usual. I didn't push, just drank my coffee and waited. Eventually she said, "Do you ever wonder if you made the right choice? Moving out here, I mean." "Sometimes," I admitted. "Usually when something breaks and I realize I'm the only one who's going to fix it." She laughed, but it was hollow. "I left Seattle 2 years ago. Good job, nice apartment, all the things you're supposed to want. But I was miserable. I waited." This was more than she'd ever shared. "I was in a relationship," she continued, staring into her mug. 4 years. He worked at the same company, different department. Everyone thought we were perfect together. She paused. "He was really good at making me feel like I was the problem. Like if I just tried harder, communicated better, stopped being so sensitive, everything would be fine." My jaw tightened, but I didn't interrupt. "It took me 3 years to realize he was the one making me feel that way on purpose," she said. "By the time I figured it out, I'd already lost most of my friends. He'd convinced me they were bad influences, that they didn't really care about me like he did." She set her mug down. "When I finally left, I didn't have anyone. My aunt, the one who left me this place, she was the only person who'd stayed in touch. She told me I could come here, take as long as I needed. I'm sorry," I said quietly. "Don't be. I'm not." She looked up at me. "Moving here saved me. This place, the quiet, the space to just exist without someone telling me I'm doing it wrong. That's why I stay." I understood that more than she knew. "Your aunt sounds like she was a good person," I said. Emma's eyes got a little glassy. She was. She died 8 months after I moved in. Heart attack, completely sudden. This house was the only thing she had to leave, and she left it to me. She wiped her eyes quickly. "Sorry, I don't know why I'm telling you all this." "I'm glad you are," I said. And I meant it. Week 3. Emma mentioned that her fence needed work. Several posts were rotting and the wire was sagging. "I can pay you," she said. "I know you're busy. I'm not taking your money," I said, "but I could use an extra set of hands if you want to help." We spent that Saturday working on the fence. I showed her how to use the post hole digger, how to set the new posts level, how to stretch the wire tight. She was a quick learner, didn't complain about the heat or the work. We didn't talk much, just focused on the task. Around noon, we took a break. Emma had brought a cooler with sandwiches and cold water. We sat in the shade of an old oak tree, sweaty and tired. "I like this," she said after a while. "Like what?" "Working with my hands. Creating something, fixing something. In Seattle, I spent all day in meetings and answering emails. I never made anything real." I took a drink of water. "What did you do? You never said." "Project manager, tech company. I was good at it, but I hated every second." She pulled off her work gloves. "I do some freelance consulting now online, enough to pay the bills, but it's on my terms." "Sounds better than being miserable full-time," I said. She smiled. "Much better." We finished the fence as the sun was starting to set. Emma stood back, hands on her hips, surveying our work. "We did good," she said. "Yeah," I agreed. "We did." That night, alone in my house, I realized I was smiling for no particular reason. Week 4. Dinner became another routine. Not every night, but once or twice a week, one of us would text the other asking if they'd eaten. Sometimes I'd cook, grilled chicken, burgers, nothing fancy. Sometimes she'd cook, pasta, stir-fry, things that were actually seasoned properly. One evening we were eating on her back porch, watching the sun go down. Emma had made some kind of Thai noodle dish that was way better than anything I could make. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure." "Why did your last relationship end?" I chewed slowly, considering. We wanted different things. She wanted me to be someone I wasn't. I wanted her to be okay with who I was. Neither of us could give the other what they needed. "Do you regret it?" "No," I said honestly. "I regret wasting 2 years figuring it out, but I don't regret ending it." Emma nodded. "That's healthier than I was. I regret almost all of it." "You shouldn't," I said. "You got out. That takes courage." She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You're a good person, Jake. I hope you know that." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. Week 5, I got the flu. Not terrible, but enough that I felt like garbage and couldn't work. I texted my clients to reschedule, took some cold medicine, and planned to sleep it off. Around noon, there was a knock at my door. I dragged myself off the couch and opened it to find Emma standing there with a grocery bag. "I saw your truck hasn't moved in 2 days, she said. "You sick?" "Just a cold," I said, my voice raspy. She held up the bag. "Soup, orange juice, cold medicine." "Juice, cold. The good kind, not the store brand. Can I come in?" I stepped aside. Emma walked into my kitchen like she owned it, started putting things away. She heated up the soup, poured me juice, and basically forced me to eat. "You don't have to do this," I said. "I know." She sat across from me while I ate. "But I'm going to anyway." She stayed for an hour, didn't try to make conversation when I was too tired to talk, just sat nearby. Before she left, she said, "Text me if you need anything. I'm serious." "I will." She hesitated at the door. "Jake?" "Yeah?" "You'd do the same for me. I know you would." She was right, I would. Week 6 one evening, Emma texted asking if I wanted to watch a movie. I went over around 8 and she had popcorn made, beer in the fridge. We ended up watching some action movie neither of us had seen before. It was terrible, but in an entertaining way. We sat on opposite ends of her couch, making fun of the ridiculous plot holes. Halfway through, during a particularly absurd scene, Emma laughed so hard she snorted. She immediately covered her face, embarrassed. "Don't," I said. "That was cute." She peeked at me through her fingers. I hate my laugh. I don't. Something shifted in the air between us. Not awkward, just aware. We finished the movie, but I was hyper-conscious of every small movement. Her adjusting the blanket over her legs, me reaching for my beer, the 6 inches of space between us on the couch that felt both too much and not enough. When the credits rolled, neither of us moved immediately. "Jake?" Emma said quietly. "Yeah? I meant what I said that night at the fence, just so you know. My heart did that too big for my chest thing again. I know. But I also meant what I said in my kitchen. No pressure. I'm not going anywhere." I turned to look at her, really look at her. "What if I'm not good at this? Relationships, feelings, all of it. Then we'll figure it out together," she said simply. I didn't kiss her. I wasn't ready for that yet, but I did reach over and take her hand. She laced her fingers through mine, and we sat like that until I eventually had to go home. Walking back across the property, I looked at my hand like it belonged to someone else. I could still feel the warmth of hers. Week 7. I started opening up more. Not in big dramatic conversations, but in small moments. I told her about my grandfather, How he'd taught me everything I knew about electrical work. How he'd been the only person who never expected me to be anything other than what I was. She told me about her parents who'd divorced when she was young, how her mother had remarried and started a new family, and Emma had always felt like the leftover from the first try, how her aunt had been more of a mother to her than her actual mother ever was. We were lying on a blanket in her backyard one night looking at stars, the kind of thing I would have thought was cheesy a month ago, but now it just felt right. "Do you think you'll ever go back to the city?" I asked. "No," she said without hesitation. "This is home now. Real home, not just a place I'm staying." "Good," I said. She turned her head to look at me. "Why good?" "Because I don't want you to leave." In the starlight, I could see her smile. "I don't want to leave either." Week 8. We fell into an easy rhythm. Coffee most mornings when our schedules aligned. Dinner a few times a week. Working on projects together. She helped me re-roof part of my barn. I helped her build new nesting boxes for her chickens. Movie nights. Long conversations about nothing and everything. I was loading tools into my truck one morning when Emma walked over, 2 travel mugs in hand. "Road coffee," she said, handing me one. "You've got that job in Millerton today, right?" "Yeah, panel upgrade. Should take most of the day. Drive safe." She turned to go and I caught her hand. She looked back, surprised. "Thank you," I said, "for the coffee, for everything." Emma squeezed my hand. "You don't have to thank me, Jake. This is what people do when they care about each other." After she walked away, I stood there for a moment holding the warm mug she'd made for me, and realized something that should have been obvious weeks ago. I was falling in love with her. Not the dramatic, lightning strike kind of love you see in movies, but something quieter, steadier. The kind of love that builds itself one small moment at a time. Extra coffee, shared work, comfortable silence, hands held in the dark. The kind of love that, when I really thought about it, had probably been growing for a lot longer than 8 weeks. Maybe Emma had been right all along. Maybe love is quiet when it's real, and maybe I'd just been too busy making noise to hear it. It was a Tuesday morning, about 3 weeks after I'd realized I was in love with Emma, when everything shifted. I was in my barn, reorganizing my tool storage for probably the 3rd time that month, a project I kept inventing because I liked having something to do with my hands while I thought. I still hadn't told Emma how I felt, not because I was scared exactly, but because I wanted to be sure, wanted to find the right moment, wanted to do it justice. I heard a vehicle pull up and assumed it was Emma. She'd mentioned she might stop by to borrow my ladder, but when I walked outside, I saw an unfamiliar silver SUV parked in her driveway. Expensive looking, out of place in our rural setting. A man got out, tall, well-dressed in business casual, slacks and a button-down even though it was barely 9 in the morning. He looked around like he was surveying territory, then walked up to Emma's door and knocked. Something in my gut tightened. I watched from a distance as Emma opened the door. Even from 50 yards away, I could see her body language change. She went rigid, took a step back. The man said something I couldn't hear. Emma shook her head, tried to close the door, but he put his hand on the doorframe, keeping it open. I was walking before I made the conscious decision to move. As I got closer, I could hear voices. The man's was smooth, controlled. "Just want to talk, Em. 5 minutes, you owe me that much." "I don't owe you anything, Derek." Emma's voice was strained. "You need to leave." "Derek, the ex from Seattle." "I drove 8 hours to see you," he said, and I could hear the manipulation in his tone, the guilt trip. "The least you could do is hear me out." I reached the porch steps. "Everything okay here?" Derek turned, looking annoyed at the interruption. Emma's eyes met mine, and I saw relief mixed with fear. "Who's this?" Derek asked, his tone dismissive. "The local handyman?" "I'm her neighbor," I said evenly. "Jake." "Well, Jake, this is a private conversation between me and my girlfriend." "Ex-girlfriend," Emma interrupted firmly. "And there's nothing private about it. You can say whatever you need to say right here." Derek's jaw tightened. He clearly wasn't used to Emma standing up to him. "Fine. I came to tell you I'm sorry. I've been going to therapy, working on myself. I realize now how I hurt you, and I want to make it right." "Good for you," Emma said. "I'm glad you're getting help, but that doesn't change anything between us." "Just like that? 4 years, Emma? 4 years together and you're going to throw it away because of some rough patches?" "Rough patches?" Her voice rose slightly. "You isolated me from my friends. You made me doubt my own perception of reality. You convinced me that every problem we had was my fault. That's not a rough patch, Derek. That's abuse. I saw Derek's expression flicker. Anger, quickly masked. I never hit you. There are other ways to hurt people, Emma said quietly. Derek noticed me still standing there and his facade cracked a bit. Do you mind? This is between us. I mind when you show up uninvited, Emma said before I could respond. I moved 2,000 miles to get away from you. I changed my phone number. I blocked you on everything. What part of that made you think I wanted to see you? I told you. I've changed. Then prove it by respecting my boundaries and leaving. Emma's voice was shaking now, but she held her ground. I don't want you here. I don't want contact with you. I want you out of my life. Please go. Derek looked between us, and I could see him calculating. Finally, he took a step back, hands up in mock surrender. Fine, I'll go. But you're making a mistake, Emma. Hiding out here in the middle of nowhere with... He gestured at me dismissively. This guy? That's not a life. That's running away. Maybe, Emma said. But it's my choice to make, not yours. Derek started to say something else, thought better of it, and walked back to his SUV. He paused before getting in, looked directly at me. Good luck with her, man. She's more trouble than she's worth. He drove off, gravel crunching under his tires. I looked at Emma. She was gripping the doorframe so hard her knuckles were white, her whole body trembling. Emma, she held up a hand. I'm fine. I need a minute. But she wasn't fine. I could see her starting to crumble. I moved closer, slowly, giving her space to tell me to back off if she needed to. Can I come in? She nodded, unable to speak. Inside, Emma made it to the couch before the adrenaline crash hit. She sat down heavily, put her face in her hands, and started to cry. Not gentle tears, harsh, gasping sobs that sounded like they were being ripped out of her chest. I sat next to her, not touching, just present. After a minute, she leaned into me and I put my arm around her. She cried into my shoulder while I held her, saying nothing because there was nothing to say that would fix this. Eventually, the sobs subsided into shaky breathing. I'm sorry, she mumbled against my shirt. Don't apologize. I thought I was over this. Over him. Over being scared. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. But the second I saw him standing there, I felt like that person again. The one who couldn't do anything right. The one who was too sensitive, too needy, too much. You're not any of those things, I said. I know, logically I know. But he gets in my head so easily. She stood up, started pacing. How did he even find me? I was so careful. Didn't tell anyone where I was going except my aunt. And she wouldn't have... She stopped, realization dawning. Social media. Someone I used to work with must have posted something. Tagged a location nearby. God, I'm so stupid. Emma, stop. I stood up. This isn't your fault. He's the one who crossed boundaries. He's the one who showed up uninvited. I know, but... No buts. You did everything right. You told him to leave. You stood your ground. I'm proud of you. She looked at me like I'd said something in a foreign language. You're proud of me? Yeah. That took courage. Fresh tears spilled over, but different this time. Thank you for being there, for not asking questions, just being there. Always, I said, and I meant it. The following days. Derek didn't come back, but his presence lingered like smoke. Emma was different. Not with me exactly, but with herself. She started second-guessing everything. She canceled dinner plans twice, saying she was tired. When I came over for coffee, she was distracted, jumpy at small sounds. She stopped texting me the casual updates she used to send. Photos of her chickens, funny things she'd seen, random thoughts. I tried to give her space while also making sure she knew I was there. I texted her good morning, asked if she needed anything. Didn't push when she said she was fine. But she wasn't fine, and we both knew it. One evening, about a week after Derek's visit, I walked over around sunset. Emma's truck was there, but her lights were off. I knocked, heard movement inside, but she didn't answer. Emma, I know you're in there. I kept my voice gentle. I'm not leaving until you talk to me. After a long moment, the door opened. Emma looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair uncombed, wearing the same clothes I'd seen her in yesterday. I'm okay, she said automatically. You're not. She deflated. No, I'm not. Can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. I followed her into the kitchen. There were dishes in the sink, which was unusual for her. Mail piled on the counter, unopened. Small signs that she was struggling. "I can't stop thinking about him," Emma said, leaning against the counter. "Not because I want him back. God, no, but because I'm so angry. Angry that he still has this power over me. Angry that I let him steal 2 years of peace just by showing up for 10 minutes. That's normal," I said. "I don't want it to be normal." Her voice cracked. "I worked so hard to build a life here, to feel safe, and he walked right through all of that like it was nothing." I moved closer. "He showed up uninvited. That's not your fault or your failure. That's him being an asshole who doesn't respect boundaries. But I'm letting him win by falling apart like this." "You're not falling apart. You're processing something difficult. That's different." Emma shook her head. "You don't understand. When I was with him, I couldn't trust my own thoughts. He'd tell me something happened one way, and even though I remembered it differently, I'd start doubting myself. By the end, I didn't know what was real and what was in my head." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "What if I do that again? What if I start doubting myself with you?" My chest ached. "Do you doubt yourself with me?" "No," she admitted, "but I'm scared I will. I'm scared that I'm too damaged for this, for us, that I'll ruin it somehow." "Emma, you deserve someone who has their shit together, Jake. Someone who doesn't have panic attacks when their ex shows up. Someone who doesn't need to be fixed." "I don't want someone else," I said firmly. "And you don't need to be fixed. You need time and space to heal, and I'm happy to give you that. But don't push me away because you think you're protecting me." "I'm not trying to protect you," she said quietly. "I'm trying to protect myself, because if I let myself love you completely, if I give you all of me, and then something goes wrong," she trailed off. "Then we'll deal with it," I said. "Together. What if I'm not strong enough?" I closed the distance between us, took her hands in mine. "Emma, you left an abusive relationship. You moved across the country by yourself. You built a life from nothing. You stood up to him when he showed up, even though you were terrified. You're one of the strongest people I know." She was crying again, but softer this time. "I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the hard thing anyway." I squeezed her hands. "And you don't have to do it alone. Not anymore." Emma pulled her hands away, wrapped her arms around herself. "I need some time. Not to figure out how I feel about you, I already know, but to figure out how to trust myself again. To trust that I'm not going to fall back into old patterns." It hurt, but I understood. "Okay, how much time?" "I don't know, is that okay?" "Yeah," I said, even though every instinct I had was screaming at me to hold her, to promise her everything would be fine. "But I'm not disappearing. You want space? I'll give you space. But I'm still next door. I'm still here if you need me." She nodded, unable to speak. I left before I could say anything else. Walked back to my house in the dark, my chest tight with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Worry, frustration, fear that I was losing something I'd only just found. The next 2 weeks I kept my word. I didn't go over uninvited. Didn't text unless she texted first. But I paid attention. I noticed when her lights were on late at night, when her truck hadn't moved for 2 days, when she was outside working in her garden, moving with the mechanical efficiency of someone trying to outrun their own thoughts. I wanted to fix this for her, wanted to tell her that she was safe, that Derek couldn't hurt her anymore, that I would never make her doubt herself. But I knew that wasn't something I could fix. This was her healing to do, and all I could offer was patience. One night, around 2 in the morning, I couldn't sleep. I got up to get water and noticed lights on at Emma's house. All of them, like she'd turned on every lamp and overhead fixture. I stared at those lights for a long time, debating. She'd asked for space, but something felt wrong. I grabbed my phone, texted her, "You okay?" The 3 dots appeared immediately, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, no. I didn't think, just pulled on shoes and walked over. She must have been watching for me because the door opened before I knocked. "I can't sleep," she said. Her voice was raw, exhausted. "Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in Seattle, back in that relationship. And I'm so tired, Jake. I'm so tired of being afraid." "Then stop fighting it alone," I said. "Let me help." "How? You can't fix this." "I know, but I can sit with you. I can be here while you figure it out. I can remind you that you're not alone." I paused. "That's what love is, isn't it? Not fixing each other, just staying. Emma's breath caught. You love me? I hadn't planned to say it like this at 2 a.m. in her doorway, but it was the truth, and she needed to hear it. Yeah, I said. I do. I think I have for a while now, and I know you're scared, and I know you're dealing with a lot, and I know this might be terrible timing, but you should know, I'm not going anywhere. No matter how long it takes, no matter how hard it gets, I'm here. For a long moment, Emma just looked at me, then quietly, can you stay? Just for tonight. I don't want to be alone. Of course. She led me to the living room. I sat on one end of the couch, she curled up on the other end with a blanket. We didn't talk. I just stayed awake, present, while she finally closed her eyes and slept. And as the sun started to rise, I made a quiet promise to myself. I would be patient. I would be steady. I would prove to her day by day that love didn't have to hurt. That sometimes love is just someone staying when things get hard. I woke up on Emma's couch with morning light streaming through the windows and a blanket draped over me that I didn't remember pulling over myself. Emma was in the kitchen, making coffee. I could hear the familiar sounds, the grinder, water running, the click of the machine starting. I sat up, running a hand through my hair. My neck was stiff from the couch, but I didn't care. Emma appeared in the doorway, 2 mugs in hand. She looked better than she had last night. Still tired, but calmer. More present. Morning, she said, handing me a mug. Morning. She sat on the other end of the couch, tucking her legs under her. We drank our coffee in silence for a while, the comfortable kind we'd developed over months of early mornings together. I'm sorry about last night, she finally said, for falling apart like that. Don't apologize. I feel like that's all I've been doing lately. Apologizing, falling apart, pushing you away. She set her mug down. That's not who I want to be, not with you. You're allowed to have bad days, Emma. That doesn't change anything. She looked at me, really looked at me, with an expression I couldn't quite read. You said you loved me last night, did you mean it? My heart kicked up. Yeah, I meant it. Why? The question caught me off guard. Why do I love you? Yeah, I need to understand. Because right now I feel like a mess. I feel broken and scared and like I have nothing to offer. So why would you choose this? Choose me? I set my own mug down, took a moment to find the right words. You want the truth? Please. I love you because you're real, I said. Because you don't pretend to be okay when you're not. Because you moved out here and built a life by yourself, and that takes courage most people don't have. Because you make extra coffee hoping I'll stop by. Because you helped me fix a barn roof in 90-degree heat and never complained once. Because you laugh at terrible movies and take care of your chickens like they're your children, and bring me soup when I'm sick. Emma's eyes were getting glassy. I love you because you saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, I continued. Because for 3 years, I convinced myself I was fine alone, and then you told me you'd been loving me quietly, and it woke up a part of me I thought was dead. I paused. And I love you because you're fighting. Even when it's hard, even when you're scared, you're still fighting to heal. That's not broken, Emma, that's brave. A tear slipped down her cheek. I don't feel brave. You are, though. You're one of the bravest people I know. She was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then she said, I've been running for 2 years. I thought I was safe here because I was alone. But that's not safety. That's just hiding. There's nothing wrong with needing time to heal. No, but there's something wrong with staying stuck in that place. She wiped her eyes. Derek showing up, it terrified me. Not because I wanted him back, but because it reminded me of how powerless I felt in that relationship, how small I became. She looked at me. But you know what I realized? What? He doesn't have that power anymore. I gave it to him by being afraid. But standing there on my porch with you beside me, I realized something changed. I'm not that person anymore. I'm not the one who accepts being treated badly because she thinks she deserves it. You never deserved it. I know that now. And I know it because of how you treat me. She moved closer on the couch. You've never once made me feel small, Jake. You've never made me doubt myself or question my worth. You've just been there, constant, steady, safe. My chest was tight. That's what you deserve, always. When I asked for space, it wasn't because I didn't want you. It was because I was scared of wanting you too much. She reached for my hand. But I've had 2 weeks to think, and I realized something. Being alone feels safe because it's familiar, but it's not what I want. Not anymore. What do you want? This, she said simply. You, us. I want to stop being afraid of being happy. I want to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. I want to trust that someone can love me without trying to control me or change me or diminish me. I do love you, I said, exactly as you are, Pike. I know, she squeezed my hand, and that's what scares me the most, because I've never had that before. Unconditional acceptance. Someone who stays not because they want to fix me, but just because they want to be near me. That's what love is supposed to be, isn't it? I said. Just staying. Emma's breath hitched. Yeah, it is. She paused. I love you too, Jake. I've loved you for so long, and I'm tired of being afraid of it. I pulled her closer, and she came willingly, tucking herself against my chest. I wrapped my arms around her and felt her relax into me with a sigh that sounded like relief. I'm not going anywhere, I said quietly into her hair. I don't care how hard it gets or how long it takes. I'm here. Promise. Her voice was small. Promise. We stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other. No dramatic declarations, no grand gestures. Just two people who'd been lonely choosing to be together. Eventually, Emma pulled back enough to look at me. Her eyes were red from crying, but clearer than I'd seen them in weeks. I'm still going to have bad days. Days where I'm scared or doubt myself or need space. I know. And I might not always be easy to love. Nobody is, I said. But you're worth it. She smiled then, a real smile that reached her eyes. You're worth it too. I kissed her forehead, then her cheek, then finally her lips. It was gentle, tentative, like we were both afraid of breaking something fragile. When we pulled apart, Emma was crying again, but in a different way. What? I asked, wiping a tear from her cheek. I've never felt this before, this safe. She put her hand over my heart. With him, everything was conditional. His love, his kindness, his attention. I was always performing, always trying to earn it. But with you, it's just there, steady, real. Love is quiet when it's real, I said, echoing her words from months ago. You taught me that. I was talking about myself when I said that, she admitted. I'd been watching you for so long, loving you from a distance, and it was so quiet. No drama, no chaos. Just this constant, steady feeling. I didn't even realize that's what love could be until I felt it. And now I want to stop watching from a distance. She laced her fingers through mine. I want to be in it. With you, even if it's scary. Especially because it's scary, I said. The things worth having usually are. Emma laughed, a soft sound that made my chest ache in the best way. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just done pretending I don't need people. I brought her hand to my lips, kissed her knuckles. Done pretending I don't need you. Good, she whispered. Because I need you too. We spent the rest of that morning on her couch talking about everything and nothing, making plans and making promises. Not big ones. We weren't ready for that yet. Just small commitments. Coffee tomorrow, dinner next week. Being honest when things were hard. Not running when things got scary. Around noon, Emma's stomach growled loudly. She looked embarrassed, but I just laughed. When's the last time you actually ate? I asked. Yesterday morning, maybe? I stood up, pulling her with me. Come on, I'm making you lunch. You don't have to. I want to. In her kitchen, I made sandwiches while she sat at the counter, watching me move through her space like I belonged there. And maybe I did. Maybe I'd belonged there all along and we'd just needed time to figure it out. Jake, she said as I slid a plate in front of her. Yeah? Thank you for staying last night, for staying, period. She picked up half the sandwich. I know I didn't make it easy. You don't have to make it easy, I said. You just have to be honest. That's all I need. She nodded, took a bite, and I watched her eat, feeling something settle in my chest. Not excitement or passion or any of the things movies told you love was supposed to feel like. Just peace, certainty, the quiet knowledge that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. After lunch, I had to leave for a job I'd scheduled weeks ago. Emma walked me to the door. See you tomorrow? She asked. Count on it. She grabbed my hand before I could leave, pulled me back for one more kiss. This one was less tentative, more certain. When we broke apart, she was smiling. I love you, she said, like she was testing how the words felt. I love you too, I replied, and it felt as natural as breathing. Walking back to my property, I couldn't stop smiling. The future was uncertain. We still had things to work through, healing to do, conversations to have. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of uncertainty, because I wasn't facing it alone anymore. And neither was she. 6 months later, I woke up in Emma's bed with early morning light filtering through the curtains, and her arm draped across my chest. This had become normal. Some nights I stayed at her place, some nights she stayed at mine, and neither of us questioned it anymore. We hadn't officially moved in together, hadn't made some grand decision about it. It just happened naturally, the way most things between us did. Emma stirred, made a soft sound, and burrowed closer. I ran my hand through her hair, and she hummed contentedly. What time is it? She mumbled, still half asleep. Early. You can go back to sleep. Are you going somewhere? Yeah, I've got that job in Riverside. The bakery rewire. She groaned. That's the one that's going to take all week, isn't it? Probably. Old building, ancient wiring. It's going to be a process. Emma opened her eyes, propped herself up on one elbow to look at me. Her hair was messy, face still soft with sleep, and I thought, not for the first time, how lucky I was. I'm going to miss you, she said. Is that pathetic? Missing you when you're just going to work? No, I'll miss you too. She smiled, leaned down to kiss me. Coffee before you go? Always. We got up, moved through the morning routine we'd built together. She made coffee while I showered. I made breakfast while she got dressed. We ate together at her kitchen table, the easy silence between us punctuated by small observations, the weather forecast, her plans for the day, my timeline for the job. This was what I loved most. Not the big moments, though those mattered too, but this, the ordinary rhythm of a life shared. The way she took her coffee, the way she always left one bite of toast on her plate, the way she'd reach across the table to touch my hand for no reason except to remind herself I was there. I'm teaching a webinar this afternoon, she said. Project Management Fundamentals for Small Businesses. Should be boring as hell. You'll make it interesting. I appreciate the confidence, but no, it's going to be boring. She grinned. But it pays well, so I'll suffer through it. Emma had slowly built up her consulting business over the past few months. She still worked from home, still kept her own schedule, but she'd found a way to use her skills that didn't make her miserable. She'd even mentioned the possibility of writing a book about project management, though she always said it like a joke, like she didn't quite believe she could do it. I believed she could do anything. After breakfast, I gathered my things. Emma walked me to the door, wrapped her arms around my waist. Be safe, she said. Text me when you get there. I will. And when you're on your way home. Emma, it's a 40-minute drive. I know. I just like knowing you're safe. She looked up at me. Is that annoying? No, I said honestly. It's nice, having someone who cares. She smiled, stood on her toes to kiss me. I'll have dinner ready when you get back. You don't have to. I want to. Besides, you cooked the last 3 nights. I kissed her again, longer this time, then forced myself to pull away before I talked myself into being late. I love you. Love you too. Now go before you lose all the good morning light for work. The job in Riverside was as complicated as I'd expected. The bakery had been operating with electrical work that probably violated half a dozen code regulations, and the owner, a woman in her 60s named Margaret, kept apologizing for the mess while simultaneously offering me fresh pastries every hour. During my lunch break, I texted Emma a photo of a cinnamon roll the size of my head with the caption, "Your competition." She replied immediately, "I'm not competing with a cinnamon roll, Jake." Good, because I think it's winning. Just for that, I'm making salad for dinner. You wouldn't. Try me. I smiled at my phone, got a knowing look from Margaret, who said, "New relationship?" 6 months, I said. That's a good smile, she observed. The kind that lasts. I hoped she was right. That evening I got home around 7. Emma's truck was in her driveway, lights on in the kitchen. I walked over, I'd long since stopped knocking, and found her at the stove, stirring something that smelled incredible. So not salad then? I said from the doorway. She turned, grinning. I'm not a monster. It's chicken stir-fry. I walked over, wrapped my arms around her from behind and pressed a kiss to her neck. She leaned back into me with a contented sigh. How was the bakery? She asked. old, in violation of approximately every electrical code, but I'll get it sorted. I rested my chin on her shoulder. How was your webinar? As boring as predicted, but I got some good feedback and someone asked if I'd do one-on-one consulting, so that might turn into something. See? Told you you'd make it interesting. You're biased. Completely. We ate dinner on her back porch, watching the sun set over the property. This had become another ritual. Weather permitting, we'd sit outside after dinner, sometimes talking, sometimes just existing in the quiet. My mom called today, Emma said after a while. I looked over. She didn't talk about her mother often. Yeah, how'd that go? Weird, she wanted to know if I was coming home for Christmas. Emma wrapped her hands around her glass. I told her this is home now. She didn't really understand. Do you want to go? To Seattle, I mean. God, no. She was quiet for a moment. But I think maybe I should. Not for long, just a few days. Face it, you know. Prove to myself I can go back without falling apart. You want company? She looked at me, surprised. You'd do that? Meet my mother? If you want me to. I do. Want you to, I mean. She reached for my hand. But I also need you to know she's going to judge you, judge us. She'll make comments about how I'm wasting my potential, living out here in the middle of nowhere with a... She stopped. With a what? She'll find something. She always does. I just don't want you to take it personally. I won't, I said. I know who I am and I know what we have. Your mother's opinion doesn't change that. Emma squeezed my hand. How did I get so lucky? I ask myself that every day. She laughed, and we sat in comfortable silence as the last light faded from the sky. 3 months later, the trip to Seattle was hard, but Emma handled it better than she'd expected. Her mother was exactly as she'd warned, polite but cold, making subtle comments about Emma's choices. But Emma didn't shrink or apologize. She held her ground, held my hand, and after 3 days, we flew back home. That wasn't so bad, she said on the drive back from the airport. You were amazing, I told her. Really, I'm proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you there. Sure you could have, but I'm glad I was. Back home, we fell into our rhythm again. Work, dinners, quiet evenings. Emma's consulting business was growing steadily. She'd started writing that book, working on it early in the mornings before the rest of her day began. I'd expanded my client base, even hired a part-time apprentice, a kid from town who wanted to learn the trade. We talked about the future sometimes in vague terms. Neither of us felt rushed to make big decisions. We knew we wanted to be together. The specifics of how that looked could wait. One evening in early spring, almost a year after that night at the fence, we were working together in Emma's garden. She was planting tomatoes. I was fixing the irrigation system she'd been complaining about. Jake, she said, not looking up from the soil. Yeah, I'm happy. She said it simply, like she was testing the words. I don't think I've said that out loud in years, but I am. I'm happy. I sat back on my heels, looked at her kneeling in the dirt, hair pulled back, dirt on her hands, completely at peace. Me too. She looked over at me then, really looked at me. Love is quiet when it's real, she said. I told you that once, do you remember? How could I forget? I was so scared when I said that, terrified you'd run or laugh or tell me I was crazy. She wiped her hands on her jeans. But you didn't. You stayed. You stayed through everything, Derek showing up, me pushing you away, all of it. You just stayed. I told you I would. I know. And you kept your word. She stood up, walked over to where I was kneeling. I don't think I ever really thanked you for that. You don't need to thank me for loving you, Emma. Maybe not, but I want to anyway. She cupped my face in her hands, dirt and all. Thank you for being patient, for being steady, for teaching me that love doesn't have to be loud or complicated or painful, that it can just be this. I stood, pulled her close and kissed her there in her garden with the sun setting and the smell of fresh earth around us. When we pulled apart, she was smiling. You know what the best part is? She said. What? This isn't the ending. It's just the middle. We have so much more ahead of us. She was right. There would be more challenges, more hard days. Life wasn't a fairy tale, and we both knew that. But we also knew we'd face whatever came together. That night, lying in bed with Emma asleep beside me, I thought about the past year. About how I'd convinced myself I was fine alone. How I'd built walls around my life and called it peace. How Emma had quietly dismantled those walls just by being herself, by offering me something I didn't know I needed. She stirred in her sleep, unconsciously moving closer, and I put my arm around her. She settled with a soft sigh, and I felt that familiar sense of peace wash over me. Love is quiet when it's real. Emma had been right about that. She'd been right about a lot of things. For years, I thought love was supposed to be this big, dramatic thing. Fireworks and grand gestures and passion that consumed you. And maybe for some people it is. But for us, love was coffee in the morning, shared work on a Saturday, holding hands in the dark when things got scary, choosing to stay even when it would be easier to run. It was quiet, and it was real. And for the first time in my life, I understood that sometimes the most powerful thing love can be is simply a place where you're safe enough to rest. Emma had given me that. And every day I tried to give it back to her. I looked at her sleeping peacefully beside me and thought, this is it. This is what I want for the rest of my life. Not the dramatic love story, not the fairy tale ending, just this, the quiet, steady presence of someone who stayed, someone who loved me quietly, completely, truly, and who let me love her the same way.